This program, of course, is presented by Pro Wrestling Illustrated, the most widely read, widely sold, and respected wrestling magazine in the world today.
This is the Pro Wrestling Illustrated podcast. I'm Kevin McElvaney, editor-in-chief of Pro Wrestling Illustrated, filling in for senior writer Al Castle. And with me, as he's usually with Al Castle, is our contributing writer, Brian Solomon. How's it going, Brian?
Doing okay, Kevin. Hope you're doing all right there in the bowels of PWI.
Yes, yeah. The got all the boxes and stuff behind me here in the makeshift office. So yeah, Al's not on the show today. I'm going to do my best to fill in for him, try to get his cadence during the intro there. Don't know that I nailed it, but there it is, for better and for worse. But we have a really big story to break here on the podcast, which has not really happened before at this level. And we're really excited to announce that Jordynne Grace has extended her contract with Impact Wrestling multiple years. And will be continuing to make an impact, as it were, in the Knockouts division, where she's currently one half of the Knockouts Tag Team Champions. And we are very grateful today to have as a guest the Impact Knockouts Tag Team Champion and contributing writer for Pro Wrestling Illustrated with a new column that I'm sure we're going to talk about, Jordynne Grace. How's it going, Jordynne?
Hi, guys. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, thanks for taking the time out of your schedule. I know you're busy.
Yeah, our pleasure.
So congrats on the new contract. You've done a lot of big things in Impact. We already mentioned you're one half of the Knockouts Tag Team Champions at this time, and previously had a nice run with the Knockouts Championship. I've got to imagine, just about any company would be happy to have you working with them. So what influenced this decision for you?
So just like you said, I feel like I have done a couple of like cool things in Impact. I have the Knockouts tag title, and I had, the Knockouts Championship, but I still feel like there's more for me to do here. I feel like there's a lot of potential for growth, and I feel like at Impact, I just have opportunities to do things that I might not be able to do at other companies. So that's, one of the main reasons that I decided to stick around.
Very cool. So, what has this shift been like into tag team competition? You were teaming with Jazz for a bit, and then, of course, you found your new partner in Rachel Ellering, and that yielded success for you. How do you compare that and the reintroduction, so to speak, of this tag division to what you were doing as a singles wrestler? How has that shift been for you?
Honestly, I love it. And honestly, I think it's because I wrestle such a intense and kind of explosive style that I love being able to tag out whenever I need a break. That's kind of a big plus for me. So I really love it. So that's why I wanted to, go after the Knockouts tag titles. And I'm very blessed to have, had opportunities with multiple people and, been teamed up with Jazz and now with Rachel Ellering. So I feel really blessed and lucky to have been able to have those opportunities here at Impact.
Being in the ring with Jazz and teaming up with her, that's got to be a huge thing, just because she's been so important to the industry and for women's wrestling. Were you nervous at all getting in the ring and being side by side with her, given that reputation she carries with her, being, one of the greats?
At first I was nervous, but it's so funny because when you meet Jazz, she has such a calming presence, and she's just so humble and down to earth. It's just, it's not like being around like a huge superstar, even though she could totally carry herself that way. And she can, like she's basically like Stone Cold, right? Like
Right.
That's how cool she is. But she's just such a calming personality and presence that I didn't feel nervous at all when I first started tagging with her.
And Jordynne, you challenged her for the NWA women's title a couple of years back. So did that kind of help a little bit in working with her as a tag team, that you guys had at least been in the ring together in some form?
I don't really think so, actually, because I was injured during that match. I had actually had a severe ankle injury. And so we actually had to cut that match short. It was the main event of that show, and I wasn't prepared or ready to get back into action at that time. So I actually ended up re-injuring my ankle during that match.
Wow. So, and did you guys ever talk about that, or how did she feel about that?
Oh, I mean, it was completely on me. I came back too soon, and it was a huge opportunity for me. It was the main event of that show, and I obviously really wanted to wrestle Jazz. So it was completely on me. I'm just lucky that I was in the ring with her and she was able to protect me and, you know, get to the conclusion of the match without, you know, too much back and forth, I guess you would say.
And I mean, shifting from Jazz to teaming with Rachel Ellering, who as far as I know, you'd never teamed with in the past. I mean, was that difficult for you? Or, I mean, it seemed to gel really fast.
Yeah. So I think when Jazz picked out Rachel Ellering, she knows me very well. And I think she just picked the perfect person for me to team with.
Now that you have these championship belts, we have the Impact Plus event coming up. You'll be defending those championships against Fire and Flava. So what's your strategy? What's on your mind as you're going into that match?
So I believe it's the Impact Plus Under Siege you're talking about, right?
Yes.
Well, yeah. I think it's really cool that me and Rachel won the tag championships our first time tagging together. So I really think that speaks to a lot of us as a team. And I think we gel really well. Our personalities mesh. She's just so outgoing and, you know, she's a very bright spirit. And I think that whoever I'm tagging with, I kind of vibe off of them. And so I feel really confident going into that match.
To switch gears a little bit, I mentioned in your credits in the opening here, one half of the Knockouts Tag Team Champions, but another credit that recently got added to your CV, I guess, is as a contributor to Pro Wrestling Illustrated. That's a new thing. Your first column is in our June issue, which is on newsstands now. You know, I spoke to you in the lead up to this, and we talked about all different ways to approach this. You said you didn't necessarily describe yourself as a writer, but anything that you've turned in has been great. I mean, what I don't want to say what possessed you to work with Pro Wrestling Illustrated, even though we're kind of a weird crew sometimes, but like what inspired you to do that and made you want to contribute?
When I was younger, actually, one of my I guess childhood dreams before pro wrestling kind of, you know, took over my brain and everything was that I wanted to be a writer of some sort. When I was like, you know, a little kid, like 10, 11 years old, I wanted to be like a quote unquote famous explorer and go on all these crazy explorations and have a book about it eventually. And so that was like one of my kid dreams. And so I think that me being able to write for Pro Wrestling Illustrated kind of combines like my two big dreams, my two interests. And that's, you know, writing and wrestling. So I've never written anything professionally before. When I was younger, you know, I used to write short stories and poetry, and I was in all the creative writing classes. And so this is something new and completely different for me. And it's definitely been a little bit of a challenge sometimes. So I'm glad that, you know, there's an editor over there to take care of things that need to be taken care of. But yeah, I'm so happy that you guys are able to let me do this and collaborate with you on this.
I mean, it's been great. And I mean, for the record, very little editing has needed to be done on my part. I mean, it comes in and it's, you know, pretty close to ready to go. And I mean, you've just written a couple columns so far, but they've both been great. I mean, talk a little bit about that first one, because that's on newsstands now. So you basically, the premise of this column is that it's called Punching Up with Jordynne Grace. You're trying to be positive and kind of put some light out into the often negative wrestling industry. And your first column was about Lufisto. So could you talk a little bit about her and what you wanted to accomplish with that column?
Yeah, for sure. There is so much negativity in wrestling, and I feel like there's more of a highlight on the negativity sometimes than there is on the positive stuff. And so I definitely wanted to use this column to kind of shed light on people that are just amazing in wrestling, people and things, and just anything that I thought that's like a positive thing in wrestling that, you know, people should know about. And Lufisto is one of those things and one of those people. She's not acknowledged nearly enough for what she's done for wrestling. I mean, men and women couldn't wrestle each other in, you know, her province before she got involved. So I think that's just a huge testament to what she's contributed over the past 20 something years.
Yeah. I mean, you mentioned there being a whole lot of negativity in wrestling. We try to balance that just in our coverage because it's like sometimes there's a lot of just negative vibes out there and news stories. And is it ever discouraging, like when you see just negative things written? I mean, whether it's on Twitter or if it's on like one of the dirt sheets, if not necessarily even about you, but maybe about your peers. I mean, looking at that, is it hard not to take it personally sometimes?
Oh, it is extremely difficult. I've definitely gotten better at it over the years, but even with this last thing that I tried to do, the body positivity thing, that got just got like a huge negative reaction. And honestly, I was a little bit discouraged after that because, you know, it was a self-funded project, and you just kind of have to get off social media for a little while. And, you know, what do they say? They say like, go out and touch the grass or something. Yeah. And I think that's definitely something you have to do when you're online for too long, because reading that negative stuff, it can get really obsessive. So you just got to kind of take a break from it, delete those apps, and get out into the real world.
Yeah, because it seems like social media is so much of the problem. I mean, like it can be with anything. I mean, with politics, with anything we see in the world, it's like it tends to, we almost don't want to, you know, you want to look on the positive side of it, like it's a way for people to connect, but it seems like it's such a source of toxicity. And, you know, Twitter especially, it's just, it can be this overwhelming cesspool of negativity. Do you feel that is it a realistic reflection? Because the dirt sheets have been around forever. You know, the wrestlers have had to deal with that for decades and decades. But I mean, do you feel like it really reflects on the fan base, or is it the kind of thing where if you walk away from it, it's like it doesn't exist?
You know, if you walk away from it, it still does exist, because a lot of what goes on social media, especially if you get like a bad reputation on social media, that can affect your real world life. And what's crazy about social media is that there's a lot of problems with it, but there's also a lot of things that it solves and takes care of. Like, I mean, there's some honestly really bad people in wrestling, and those people have been kind of taken out because of social media. Nothing legal happened to them, but they're not, you know, allowed in the wrestling industry anymore because of what they've done. And I think that that's a good thing. But also on the other hand, like you said, like someone told me once that, you know, it's fine to know what a couple of people think about you, like, you know, people that are close to you or maybe like, you know, acquaintances. But I don't think your mind is designed to know what every single person like thinks about you. And I think that's what social media kind of makes you see, is like what every single person thinks about you and what you do.
Yeah, and I've said it so many times. It's like I sort of miss the days when I didn't know what everybody around me was thinking all the time. You know, it can be this overwhelming thing, and maybe it was easier to get along with people when we didn't know what they actually thought all the time. You know, and so I feel it maybe is elitist to say, but it's one of these things where social media gives everybody a platform. And maybe not everybody needs to have a platform. You know what I mean? Maybe only some people do. I don't know.
Even worse than that, it can give people anonymous platforms.
Yes.
And sometimes that is really like the cusp of how bad it can get. Is people can go online and say literally anything they want without any kind of repercussions to their real life, because they're behind an anonymous account.
Yeah, that's the classic thing of, you know, you would never actually say this to somebody's face, right? But you're behind a computer and you can say it. And even in, you know, in my own much, much smaller way as a writer and things, the first couple of times it happened to me, you know, years ago when social media was just taking off, I remember it was just this shocking thing of like, how is this person? You don't even know who I am. How but now it's like, oh, it happened again. Okay, great. You know,
it's always like, you know, the first name, bunch of numbers. It's never like an actual handle or anything. It's always the egg person or some kind of, you know, cartoon character.
Yes. Well, beware of anime characters as avatars.
They're the most vicious. They will dig into you.
Yes. Or the red, white, and blue skull. That's also a fun one.
Boy. Well,
that was very common.
Yeah. So you mentioned, Jordynne, that kind of hinted at what's coming in your next column. in our August issue, which actually just went to press. So could you talk a little bit about that body positivity shoot and what that is? Because I think a lot of people who are listening and who are, following you on social media or following along with your life know what you're talking about, but not everybody will. So talk a little bit about that.
So I really go into depth into what exactly body positivity is and what it represents in the article. But essentially, you go online and you see people, especially like wrestlers, because, we're usually half dressed inside the ring. People always comment on our bodies. And I see it more directed towards women than anybody else. Of course, the guys get it, but the women, it's just, they really go in on us sometimes. And so I wanted to set up this photo shoot to kind of empower women to, put it all out there and just feel confident and good about themselves. And it stemmed from, I'd seen a photo that someone had made before. I think there's a book on Amazon. I think it's called Athletes. And basically this guy, he took a bunch of different Olympic athletes and put them side by side, basically to say like, there's not one body type that represents an athlete. And so I wanted to do that with professional wrestlers. And so I got a bunch of women that volunteered, and then one man had volunteered. So he was included as well. And I just basically, they all did their separate photo shoots. And then I put this photo together, and it says, this is what a professional wrestler looks like. And it's women of all different body types. And I just wanted to kind of put that out there as a positive thing and just to empower these women and to not feel bad about themselves, because athletes look all different kinds of ways.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it turned out great. The column is great. And I think people are really going to enjoy it. And worth mentioning, Harry Aaron took those photos. He did some great work.
Oh, he killed it. He's incredible.
He's very good. Listen, I know you're busy. Just wanted to kind of reinforce. So we have, and I didn't have the date handy before, but it's on the 15th, the Impact Plus event, which is Under Siege. You have this title match. Assuming all goes well there and you and Rachel are able to retain, I mean, what's your goal going forward? You have this multi-year contract with Impact now. You've already won the Knockouts title. You've had some big matches. You current tag champion. What are your goals for the next 6-12 months? And I mean, even the next couple of years?
My biggest goal right now, honestly, is to start wrestling at Impact in front of fans. I had the Knockouts championship, and I had it for just like a couple months before fans weren't allowed anymore. And I haven't wrestled at Impact in front of fans with either of these titles in over a year. Most of my time at Impact has been without fans, and I really hate that. So that's another reason why I decided to stay around for a couple more years, because I want to do things at Impact that, I can hear a crowd reaction to. It's definitely, I haven't got the full Impact experience, as they would say.
Yeah. Are you curious as to what the reaction will be? Because I feel like sometimes you think something's working, right? But you can never actually really tell until you get that reaction.
Yeah, I definitely think I've done a couple of independent shows, and I just feel like maybe it's just because I've just gotten back, with the fans, but everybody seems so much louder and everybody's just excited that they're even at wrestling shows. So that's what I'm expecting. hopefully, it lives up to my expectation, but that's what I think is going to happen when Impact comes back with their first, show with fans.
So I want to put this in here too. We talked about championships. As far as I'm concerned, at one point you were the Uncrowned X Division champion.
Yes,
you were cheated out of it by Rohit Raju.
I have a picture with it that makes it official, right?
As far as I'm concerned, the record books might not agree. I mean, is that something you think you would do again in the future? Because you had that match, and which I guess technically wasn't a match, and then you had the qualifying match. Would you consider going after that championship again in the future?
Yeah, and I had said this on a different podcast before that I would love to be the first women's Grand Slam champion. Mm-hmm. Like, I would love to have held all the titles at Impact before I finally leave.
I mean, you have this multi-year contract now, so I mean, like, it's time to get working on that. But also, I mean, I feel like you can do it. Congrats again on all your success. Thanks for taking the time out to speak with us. Anything particular you would like to plug apart from your column and, of course, your work on Impact?
Yeah, so all my social media handles, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, Pinterest, if you're into that sort of thing, is at Jordynne Grace. Jordynne is spelled Jordynne. I also have a website where I sell everything from figures to 8x10s to video messages, and that's JordynneGraceWrestler.com.
Awesome. Well, thank you again for joining us. Again, May, I can't speak today, May 15th, Under Siege on Impact Plus. Of course, Impact Wrestling every Thursday night on Access TV. Look for Jordan's column in the new Pro Wrestling Illustrated magazine on newsstands. You can follow us at Official PWI on Twitter and Instagram, Pro Wrestling Illustrated on Facebook, and PWI-online. Brian, thank you for joining us today. Jordan, thank you for joining us. And
thank you so much.
Great day.